everyone. Welcome to our show that is Thoughtful Thursday. And today it is a really special episode for us because such a huge personality is there as our guest. And I am super excited, and so is my fellow coach, my buddy Nandaji. And Thoughtful Thursdays, we have been telling it, and I want to share it again that Thoughtful Thursday is all about that we have created this platform where we bring in coaches from various fields, international coaches who are putting their efforts to train and coach people and enhance their life in different fields which are required for their self growth. And along with that, we also are bringing in people who are the captains and the ace people in different fields, and they share their stories, they share their challenges so that everybody can understand and relate to what are the things that people go through and the kind of resilience they have for themselves, and learn from them and actually inculcate and imbibe it in their life. And keeping that thing forward, we have today an amazing personality, and I would like Nandaji to just share with everybody about Swamiji.
So a warm welcome to Swami Purnachaitanya ji. His title Swami means someone who is established in himself, and Purnachaitanya means someone who has got a fully blossomed consciousness. Swamiji is an author. He is a motivational speaker. He's a spiritual guide to many. He's also one of the most sought after yoga teachers. He's also an advanced meditation facilitator for the art of living. Excuse me. So much and more. So let us begin this evening by talking to this person who's got so much and more to share. And we found him somewhere and we got him right here onto our platform to share with us all that he's been doing. So Swamiji, a very, very warm welcome to you on the show. You are wearing so many hats, Swamiji. We would like you to share about where and how did this whole journey begin and what really happened.
So in short, in a nutshell, I was born and brought up in the Netherlands, made in Holland. And my mother was actually born in India. She had a mother from the Netherlands and a father from India. So she was born there, and when she was very small, she came to India. She came to the Netherlands back with her mother. So she grew up there. Did not speak Hindi, but of course she was half Indian. And I think so in a subtle way that brought in some of the Eastern traditions into our home. And my father was Dutch, and I have a younger brother, so we grew up. And what was a little different maybe than some of my classmates or peers was that my parents in their university days, both of them studied psychology. They also had an interest to explore a little bit more about, you can say, the spiritual practices, traditions. And they did a meditation training, a meditation program while they were in university. And they really liked it. So they used to meditate regularly. One thing I remember which stood out a little is that we were raised vegetarian. So in those days, it wasn't as common. Of course, now it's very common there as well. But sometimes when I would go to a friend's house, and then would tell them that, actually I am vegetarian. So for some of the parents, it was very difficult. They would ask me, but then what do you eat? Well, I said, well, the same thing as you, just you leave out the chicken or whatever. But as I grew up, even though at home we didn't have, you can say, a very specific Eastern influence, because of we were exposed to some of these things like meditation, even though we didn't know exactly what it was. But you grow up with that curiosity, with a certain open-mindedness, you can say. And when I grew up, I was even in school, when we used to learn about the different traditions, there was a pull towards the Eastern traditions. So I started practicing different martial arts like Taekwondo, Aikido, Kung Fu, Wushu, Ninpo Bujutsu. And over time, I realized that it was not so much the fighting skills that pulled me so much. It was that the tradition, the values, and the whole concept of learning how to master your mind. Because even of course as kids you grow up watching different movies. I remember watching the Karate Kid, with my dad, my brother, Star Wars, things like this. And then many of the movies, even if we look at the ancient epics from India, we talk about the Ramayana, Mahabharata, that other people may have watched when they were growing up. There is always this underlying message that however challenging things may be, if you learn how to master your mind, and for that usually you need a master, which usually ends up being an old, very old person, but who has a lot of wisdom. When you learn how to master your mind, then even in the most complicated situation, you're able to come out on top, or you're able to, at least tread the best path. So I think somewhere along the way, I started realizing that this is what is appealing to me the most. And then in martial arts, it is just a minor aspect, even though traditionally it wasn't. But then I was looking for something more practical. And that is what you can say thrust me forward on this journey to. So I was reading a few books about different things. And then when I met Shri Ravi Shankarji, our Gurudev in Amsterdam, he had come for a public lecture on human values and spirituality. Seeing him, observing him, and just not just the way and what he spoke, but his whole presence, his whole approach. And he guided one meditation in that program. For me, something clicked. I knew that, okay, yes, this is something authentic. This is an actual living master, spiritual master from the East. Sounded very mystical. But there was definitely something where I knew that, yes, this is someone who can actually teach me, who has this knowledge and who is able to transfer it also, to convey it. And yeah, then I started doing some of the programs that the foundation was offering there. And as I progressed, I decided I would like to become a trainer, go even deeper into this knowledge, and so that I can also share it with people. And after completing my university studies, I came to India. I thought maybe for 1 or 2 years to really go even more deep into this knowledge of yoga, meditation, and the Vedic knowledge. And then after 2 years, I realized that there is nothing I would rather do. So since then, I have been continuing my journey, learning more, sharing it with people across the world. Yeah. You're still muted.
Wow.
So beautiful.
So, one thing that I thought that this is an important question that should be asked, to Swamiji is that, a lot of people think that meditation, spirituality is just like a fad. I mean, I have come across so many people who say this to me openly, even if I try to tell them how important it is for the life. So I would like, and we would like you to share with the, audience of us that why is this fourth dimension of spirituality so important to us?
Well, again, let me try putting it in a nutshell. If we look at our life, and I think the pandemic has taught us this more than anything. So if we look at the last 1 or 2 years, people across the world have maybe not started realizing, because they may have already, but have really been brought face to face with the reality that all the things are in the world around us that we usually rely on for our sense of security, our sense of peace, our sense of stability, can change anytime. So even though somewhere we know, we tend to forget or we take it lightly. And then you realize that in a situation like this, where people who may have been with a company for the last 20 years, I personally know such people, and who were doing well. There was nobody could have expected that these are people who would be let off. But then with the pandemic, with the drastic cuts that the company had to do, they were laid off. In the same way, I know people who had a flourishing business and who were going to expand even, like they were really doing well. They had a restaurant. They had to shut down. The first few months, they still managed to somehow keep up with the expense, but then they said, we cannot, because they were not allowed to open. They were not allowed to function. And so many years of hard work, in one way went out of the window. People who rely on their social life for their sense of security, or just to blow off some steam or to feel good, suddenly could not go out of their house and meet their friends, or see their family, their parents, or their children. People who thought, okay, I'm set, I have my savings, suddenly saw their savings drastically decrease because there was no income but a lot of expense. People who thought, I'm healthy, I go to the gym, nothing much will happen to me, suddenly may have gotten very anxious that this coronavirus is getting everybody. What if I get it? Because there are stories of even healthy young people are suffering. So all of those things that knowingly, unknowingly we rely on, for our sense of stability in life started shaking. And that is why we see that so many people, even more so than before, because it's been a trend over the last 1 or 2 decades, but even more so, people are having such mental health issues where people are having a lot of anxiety, depression, stress, fear, or frustration. And if we look at all of these things, they are all part of this so-called fourth dimension. They are part of an aspect of our life that we have never really consciously been taught about how to deal with it, how to engage with it, how to explore it. And this is actually something very funny, and one thing that propelled me on this path, where I realized while I was studying that I have spent so many years already, so much of my time, energy, money even, going to primary school, then high school, then university. You spend so much time and energy studying behind a book or behind a computer, but we have never really learned how to study or how to manage this mind. So you may be sitting there, you have to focus, you have to concentrate, but what happens is, if you are frustrated or you're distracted or whatever it may be, you're not going to be effective. And this we have never learned. In the same way, we see people who may be very successful. I have been conducting programs, I will not name them for privacy's sake, but for some of the people who are considered maybe most successful or are officially some of the most wealthy people, not just in India, but in the world. So they would have everything we could materially and maybe even socially ask for. And they also came to us. They said, no, now please, we want to learn something about meditation, how to manage our mind, because in a comfortable home with the best food in front of you, if you are anxious, if you are frustrated, if you are disturbed, you cannot enjoy it. And even when we look at, like in India, this is a common scenario. For example, a simple thing like a job interview. You study your brains out, you get the best marks in your school, you come as a topper, and then you go to a company, and then there are another 10 or 20 people with the same grades as you. You may have been the best in your state. Yeah, there are many other states. In India, there is an abundance of people who study, who graduate. So then there, your marks are not going to give you that edge. Okay, so what are they looking for? They know all these people have done well. Okay, they have the marks to show for it. But now why will they hire you? They will look at you and think, okay, is this a nice person? Would I like to work with this person? Are they spontaneous? Are they relaxed? Are they able to deal with challenges? Can they work together with other people? Can they take decision under stress? So there, if you have not learned how to manage your mind, it's going to be very difficult for you. And meditation is what? Meditation is learning how the mind works and then being able to go beyond the mind, to transcending the mind. And it is learning this skill of being focused and relaxed at the same time, which may sound very easy, but then if you look, whenever we have an exam or something, people are very focused, but then they're not relaxed because you're tense. And that is why many people may have had this experience, that you study for something very hard and you go for a presentation or an exam or something. And then there are some things where you think, oh God, I know this, but it's on the tip of your tongue, but it's not coming. And then the moment that you are done with your presentation or your interview or whatever it may be, or your exam, you step out of that hall and suddenly you remember. This has happened to so many people. And why? Because it's not that, because God is angry with you or that you didn't study properly. It's simply because the moment it's done, whether you have messed up or you did really well, you know that, okay, at least for today I'm done, or this thing is over. And then you relax. And the moment you relax, suddenly you remember. Because for our mind to function optimally, it needs to be relaxed. But then we have never learned how to be focused and relaxed at the same time. When you relax, you go off to sleep. And when you're focused, you're tense. And meditation is this practice of learning how to be focused and relaxed at the same time. And this is where you can really perform. You will see your perception, your observation, your expression, your communication skills, your sensitivity to the surroundings, your empathy. Everything improves, And this is, I would say, in today's world, what is needed most, whether you want to be happy, whether you want to be successful, whether you want to be healthy in life.
Very true, Swamiji. That is so true. Managing the mind, little things can throw us completely off the balance. But one question that keeps coming up is like, people think that, oh, either you have to be an elderly person or you have to be like a Swamiji who's, like Purnachaitanya with a fully blossomed consciousness. So, how can people who are leading ordinary lives, doing their 9 to 5 jobs, or doing the normal things that any of us do, can attend something like this where they are both focused and meditative, or in a relaxed state? You already said about mind management, that yes, that is one of the important aspects. What else can they do that will really bring them to calm down?
So the most effective is, like there are different meditation techniques available. Breathing techniques can be very useful also as a preparation to quieten the mind. But the things with all of this, as you said, no, because meditation is become so popular, like yoga, we have seen over the last 10-20 years, there is a drastic change in perception, where earlier it may have been still something a little curious or odd or even strange. But now we see it has become so commonly known, so accepted across the world, so popular, that with it also, it has become a whole industry. So there are many things that are being offered under the name of meditation, and even the name of yoga, that may actually have very little to do with real authentic yoga or meditation. So the same way, I know many people now, they realize that yes, I need to do something to manage my mind, to be able to calm down, to relax again, to find my center, to regain my inner peace. But then if you just Google and you find a YouTube video, or you download an app with 2 minutes, you have these meditations, and some people may think, yes, I'm a very busy executive, this is perfect, 2 minutes I can fit in any time. But then that's not a real meditation. So then you're somewhere denying yourself an authentic experience, and with it the authentic benefits, because there has been a lot of research on meditation and mindfulness practices, and they have tremendous benefits. But then you need to do a proper practice. And in this scenario where we find so many people now looking for something, even though they may not really know where to look, or if you are new to something, how will you be able to judge if this is really proper? So keeping that in mind and seeing the need, during this lockdown, I was actually most of my time in Africa. I was in South Africa during the first part of the pandemic. I actually wrote a book. It's called Looking Inward, Meditating to Survive in a Changing World, which is, you can say, like a guideline or a support structure for people to start exploring, to learn how the mind works, how to manage the mind, and how to build up to your personal meditation practice, where, of course, we make them aware also of the programs that we offer for those who would like to go a little deeper, have that personal guidance, but also to explain some of the main important principles that will allow anyone to even just evaluate the practice that they are doing, or that they may be considering, that is this going to be able to take me to the goal.
So, Swamiji, I had this question because a lot of times this thing only happens that, people like have this image in their mind about meditation that, we have to sit in a proper cross-leg position and do it very properly. As you have also said right now, people look for those shortcuts. But is it that, like we have to do it that ways only, or there are, like, for somebody who is absolutely oblivious to this entire concept of spirituality, or is it like if somebody is sitting and going deep within himself, connecting to his thoughts, trying to silence the chaos, can that be also considered meditation? Because like a lot of people say that ways also. So how is it, like, for me, if I am completely oblivious to it, if I have to take that first step to start, but all these things overwhelm me, so how do I do that?
So two things are there. One is, of course, if you have a proper guide, if you have someone who can guide you, like a coach or a teacher, then that person will be able to guide you, of course. Otherwise, like I said, what I have done through my book is to give people that kind of platform from where they can start their practice, because it's not that it's very complicated, like you said, but then like I also mentioned, there are certain specifics that you can keep in mind. For example, it's good to know that there is a difference between mindfulness and meditation. This is also, nowadays we see that it's very common to introduce mindfulness as meditation, or vice versa. And there are many, for example, we see in the corporate world that still many companies, especially internationally, they prefer the term mindfulness because it's more secular. It may have less of cultural baggage, as some might say. But then if we look at the actual techniques and also the history of these practices, there is actually a very clear, significant difference between mindfulness as a practice and meditation. And not that one doesn't have benefits, they each have their own unique benefits, but mindfulness, if we try to sum it up in a nutshell, most of the practices focuses on being mindful. So being fully with what you're doing, bringing the mind to one place, one point, whether it is with the food you're eating, or you're walking with full awareness, or you're taking your attention to your breath. So all of these, or to your thoughts. So these are practices that are definitely beneficial, even if you just compare it to our usual state where we may be very scattered, where the mind is all over the place. So it's a great improvement, but you are still doing something. You're still engaging the mind. You're working with the conscious mind. And meditation is going beyond the conscious mind. It is going beyond the mind and the thoughts, and it is moving from effort to effortlessness. So in the yoga scriptures, they talk about, in the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali, for example, he talks about different practices, and one of them is dharana. Dharana means bringing your mind to that one point. And then there is dhyana. Dhyana meditation is where you let go, where it becomes an effortless, you can say, experience. And when you really transcend, then you're not even in the thinking mind anymore, then it's called samadhi, that total equanimity. And here we see that meditation is such a boon also for our current challenges, because we face so many impressions every day, so many challenges, so much of stressful situations. And for the mind to be able to recharge, to relax, to rejuvenate, come back to the center, it needs to rest properly. And we find nowadays, many people share with me that even if you sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours, it's more than enough for the body. But when they wake up, the mind is not fresh. You don't feel really, you may have the same thoughts still running through your head. It's not like, okay, yes, it's a new day, I'm ready for it. So then your mind needs a deeper rest even than sleep. And this is what meditation can give you. They say that 20 minutes of proper meditation gives your mind the same amount of rest as 4 to 6 hours of sleep does. So it indicates what kind of a deep rest you can give to your mind, because it's a conscious rest. It's not an unconscious process. And this is also where you find that a lot of the challenges that we face now, where people may feel anxious, they may feel disturbed or frustrated, you can rationalize it for yourself, saying there is no reason to really be so upset about this, or what is the point of being, fed up with that, or technically, if you see the figures, hardly, it's very small percentage of people that actually die of corona. So if you are young, if you are healthy, intellectually, you may say there is no reason to be so anxious or to be so disturbed. But that doesn't change the way you feel. So even though you keep telling yourself there is no reason to be afraid, you're still afraid, because feeling is more subtle than your intellect. So then to address that and to deal with it successfully, you need to go beyond the thoughts, because feeling is more subtle than thought. So then how to go beyond your thoughts? And again, that is where meditation can be a great support.
Wow, Swamiji, this is so enlightening. And, I want to ask a question which may sound redundant at this point, but it's a confusion that most people make. They tend to, because you spoke about the finer nuances of mindfulness and meditation, people think spirituality and being religious is the same. So maybe that little difference, if you can, share as to what really is the difference between the two, so that then people don't think, oh, this is something for elderly or old age people, and they can start, imbibing this in their life now and here.
So if you ask me, as per my definition, of course, people may have their own definitions, but
sure.
If we look at religion, and this I've learned from my master, you can divide it into three aspects. One, you can say, are the practices associated with that religion. One is the symbols connected to it. And then the third aspect is what we can say the human values, or the values associated with it. the ideals, which may be love, service, compassion, caring for others, not stealing, not hurting others, not doing unto others what you wouldn't want to be done unto yourself. And this, if we really look at the main traditions and religions, we find that these values are the same everywhere. And these are all values that sustain life, that support life. The practices will differ from place to place, from time to time, and so may the symbols, but these values are the same. And these are, we can call it spiritual values. That is why if we see nowadays when people talk about spirituality, if you ask me, one beautiful definition could be that spirituality or spiritual practices are anything that uplift the spirit. So that can be meditation, it can be yoga, it can be art, it can be singing, dancing, anything that uplifts you, doing service. And this is not, it doesn't go against any tradition, any religion, because as we see, these values are present in all of these traditions, if you look a little closely. At the same time, it doesn't require you to practice a specific religion or follow certain practices or identify with certain symbols to be able to practice these things. So I think that way, whether we look at spirituality as a whole, or even if you just take specific practices like meditation, it doesn't in any way go against any tradition. And at the same time, it doesn't require you to believe in anything to be able to practice it and get the benefit. Although here I want to add one thing, because in my book also I've spoken about this, and this is something that I feel in today's world where a thing like meditation also is being rebranded, repackaged, marketed, and definitely to some extent exploited also sometimes. Even though one doesn't have to follow a specific religion or believe in something specific to be able to meditate or to do any of these practices, having a sense of honor and reverence for the practice, and maybe if you want for the teacher, for the tradition, but at least for the practice, for what you're doing, is a very valuable and almost, I would say, essential aspect of these practices, simply because, not just because it's been practiced like this in the tradition, but why it was emphasized also for all these centuries is because if we look at our mind, when you honor something, when you have a sense of reverence or respect, you do it with all your attention. Whether it is receiving a special guest to your house, if a special guest comes, your whole attention is there. You make sure, okay, are they okay? Where will they sit? If you have a neighbor who keeps walking in and out of your house, you don't even pay attention. Where did they go, come? In the same way, if you are able to bring that reverence into your practice, that sense of respect or honoring, then the moment you sit, say, for your meditation, because you're doing it with that honor and respect, your mind is already fully there. It's like you've skipped already half the trouble, because otherwise you sit there and for some time you're trying so hard to make your mind settle down because it's scattered, it's all over the place. You have craving, aversion, worries, stuck with the past. Why did that happen? Worrying about the future. So you spend so much of time and energy and effort to bring the mind to this moment, to make it settle and calm down. While if you can have that kindle, that sense of honor and respect, that already is done. So you're already halfway there. So I think for anyone who is really keen to explore these practices in a proper, profound way, not just superficially, if we can kindle that attitude, and again, I would like to emphasize, doesn't mean you have to believe in a specific tradition as such, but even like we see in the Eastern martial arts, for example, there is a lot of respect for the teacher, for the sensei. You bow down to the teacher. And it's not because, the teacher wants you to bow down. No, it's because when you have a sense of respect, there is more discipline, there is more, your attention is already there, and you will progress much faster.
Swamiji, listening to you is literally giving me so many aha moments right now. It's been such an eye opener. And the beauty is that you have put it in such simple words that it has become like so clear in front of the eyes, and I'm actually getting so much clarity in certain things which even I was not aware of. And these finer details that you're telling to differentiate and how to go forward, it's so beautiful. And you have mentioned quite a couple of times about your book right now, while talking and while giving answers, and it's popularizing like anything. Your book, Looking Inwards, it's so intriguing, the title itself. We would like you to throw light on it and tell our audience about it, and also what's who's your niche audience, who should pick up that book, and who would be benefiting the best from it.
So again, let me try and put it in that same old nutshell. Basically, the book, as the title suggests, looking inward, meditating to survive in a changing world. The book takes people on a journey in a very, I would say, approachable and a very non-judgmental way. This is something that people have shared with me, and I have taken it as a great compliment. That they said it's not condescending or telling people this is right, this is wrong, and you don't feel bad about yourself. But okay, how can we start looking inward? How can we start exploring how our mind works, how to manage our mind, our emotions, understand the laws and the principles that guide it and govern it, and then having practical tools and insight and knowledge and exercises to start not just exploring, but start managing and finally mastering your mind. So every chapter comes with some stories from my journey, allowing people to go through some of the learning experiences I had over the last 15, 20 years and benefit from it, that they can save some of the trouble and the effort. And then after going into detail of each of the topics, also giving them some practical exercises, so that step by step, 10-minute exercises, with each chapter you can build up towards your own meditation practice, or if you've already been meditating, to go maybe a little deeper, to improve your meditation practice, make it a little easier with some of the practical do's and don'ts, some of the things I had learned from my master and teaching so many people over these years. It can save people maybe some time and effort and frustration as well. And then allowing people that understanding, okay, what is mindfulness, what is meditation, how can it be practiced? And in that way, I would say it's, if we talk about the niche audience, that this is a manual or a guidebook that can really help people. I would say it's for basically everyone who is old enough to understand it and young enough to be willing to try it. But specifically, I would say for the people out there who may be struggling right now, that there may be some anxiety, some insecurities, or stress, strain, whatever it may be, at home, in their relationships, at work, or people who are sincerely looking to go a little deeper, where they say, yes, I would like to get to know myself a little better. Because the moment your mind really settles down, when you learn to meditate, you make it a regular practice. So I've given some tips also how to be regular, because many times there are things we know we are supposed to be doing, whether it is exercising or anything, but then even though we know, it's difficult to find the time or to actually do it. So some tips for that, and then how we can do that so that we get that clarity of mind. Because many of us, still many people I know, they're not fully sure, okay, what is it that I really want in life? You ask any young person, okay, what do you want to study, or what would you like to become? And I don't know. So life becomes a bit of a gamble where you, okay, let me try this, let me try that. But for most people, they end up in a situation where it may be their relationship, it may be their job, it may be their their education, or whatever it may be, where they reach to a point after just trying something or starting something where they find, oh, this is not really what I wanted, or this is not where I saw myself, or where I would like to be in life. But then they don't know exactly what they want. They just know this is not it. So it's like you get into a train or a bus and it takes you somewhere, and then you get off and you look around and you say, oh, this is not where I wanted to go. And you don't know exactly where you want to go, but this is not it. You're very sure this is not it. And then you get into another bus or train, you go somewhere else again, you see, oh yeah, no, this is also not it. And I think that's why it's so wonderful that the work that you are doing, because people need this kind of guidance. I mean, that's why people come to a coach, where suddenly they realize that, no, I have been like gambling like this, but I'm not reaching where I want to reach, no, because of whatever reason. And some of it is because we lack that clarity, because we don't have that peace of mind. We are not that centered. There is so much of things going through our mind, our head, overload, you can say, of impressions and emotions and expectations, that we find ourselves in a situation where we really don't have that clarity. And then you can keep trying to get lucky. Most of people will never reach. And then at some point in your life, people may even come to a point where a kind of dejection sets in, or disappointment, where they say, oh, this is not where I saw myself, or where I wanted to be. And that's such a shame. And I've seen that these practices can give you that clarity, where more and more you start realizing, okay, what is it that I really want? Or why am I here? Or what is it that I would like to contribute? And that makes life so much easier, because let's face it, if you're in Mumbai and you want to go to Pune, then you can find a bus or a train or a flight that says Pune, or even tell a taxi driver that I want to go to Pune, and you will reach within few hours. But if you don't know, you can spend whole your life traveling around and you may never reach.
That is so beautifully shared. In fact, that was a question that I was coming to ask you, that like you shared the importance of a living master. Of course, there is no comparison between a living master and a coach, but still, how a master guides you. People, they find it very troublesome or almost like a taboo to share about their mental issues with a coach or with anybody. So a few words of whatever you want to share with the audience, that mental health is just like physical health, and in fact it's more sensitive and delicate, and it's not something that we should ignore. So I'd like you also to share a few words so that people start waking up to this and they are open about it and accepting of the help and support that comes their way.
Yeah, I mean, we see even now where, government bodies, decision-making bodies, when we have organizations like, whether it's the United Nations or the World Health Organization, already, you can say, ringing the bell, saying that, listen, guys, this pandemic is definitely terrible. But what we are going to see after this, as the aftermath of a mental health crisis, will be even more destructive and even more alarming and even more difficult to treat. Because again, we have not learned either at home or at school, at least till now, to effectively manage our mind, how to deal with our emotions. And already, even before the pandemic, I've seen some of the latest research where they clearly state that now most of the health problems that people face in today's world, when we do, apart from things like communicable diseases, are what they call psychosomatic in nature. They are partially or entirely created by stress or any kind of the so-called negative emotions. And of course, people may sometimes feel reluctant to talk about it. Sometimes they don't even recognize it as such. They may not realize that, okay, what the way I'm feeling is not how I'm supposed to feel or can feel, or like it's not normal or how it should be. But I know that traditionally in the scriptures also they say that, in front of your guru, in front of God, and in front of your doctor, you are supposed to be naked. Now that doesn't mean next time you go and meet your doctor or your guru, you take off all your clothes and go. But the whole point is that there you need to hide nothing. No, you should not hide anything. And the same we see now. You may be going to a doctor and you said, oh, I have a headache. But if you feel shy to talk about, some other health condition, then they have only so much of deductive power. So they will say, okay, then you take this and this and this medicine. And then later you find out you have a bigger problem. And then they said, oh, but yeah, actually I was feeling this and this, but they said, why didn't you tell me? The same is with when we talk about a coach or, if you're really serious about having someone guide you and you have that faith or that impression that they are in a position to do so, that they have that knowledge, then the more honest you are, the better they can help you. So I think, especially when it comes to mental health and how to manage your mind, like I said earlier, if you really want to be happy, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be not just successful, but even just be able to enjoy life, we need to learn how to manage our mind, and we need to attend to that, because again, like I said, you have everything in the world, but if your mind is not okay, you will not be able to enjoy it. And then what is the point?
Absolutely. So true, Swamiji. In fact, so beautifully you gave this analogy where you said, even our scriptures have told this thing that you have to be all out in front of your doctor or guru or a coach. And, talking about the handling of mind and, looking inwards. In fact, and you use the word psychosomatic. So, in fact, as our mission through Educate to Elevate is also focusing on the emotional fitness. Nandaji and I have been working on that, because somehow your physical health is also somehow related to your mental health, condition, or your emotional fitness. In fact, we have this concept of yoga somatic. So that's basically where we go deep and we help the client or the person who we are helping to connect to the power center within us and experience that entire shift in all your somatic cells. So this is so, I mean, I am so happy to hear it, so because it gives us that assurance and that happiness that we are also, helping people and on the right track, where we are helping them to get that innermost shift in us. And we don't want to end, because you are telling such amazing things, but we really want you to, as those last minutes giveaways or cookies that we give to our audience, what is the food for thought that you would like to give to our audience, that they can, think about, ponder over the weekend, and start taking some steps so that they can connect to their fourth dimension and make it more powerful?
I mean, we've of course discussed many things already that should give people plenty of food for thought. But along with the food, if we have to give a cookie also, then one last thing for people to just ponder over or to contemplate, I would like to just say this, that of course, when it comes to practical tools, do something. I would say definitely, if you think that this was useful or interesting, definitely explore the book, because I've written it with that very purpose in mind, that it can help people. And people, I'm sure that definitely people, even you, will really benefit. So I kept one copy ready in case someone would ask. So this is what it looks like for those, if you're looking at on Amazon or somewhere. It says my picture, so it's easy to recognize. Looking inward. But one thing I would like to add finally is that when we start going on this journey, and when you start meditating regularly, doing these practices, the mind starts settling down. A beautiful, very subtle, beautiful shift happens in life, where suddenly you start realizing that that happiness and that peace that you are looking for is actually there, already available inside. It's just that earlier there were some things that would trigger it, and you think, oh, it was the good food or the place or the company. But actually, just as when your mind is disturbed, you cannot enjoy any of these things, when the mind is really peaceful, you feel wonderful even without all of those things. So that doesn't mean, like me, you need to have a very simple life. You can have all those things, but the beauty is that you don't have to go to places or be with people or have that food to become happy. A shift happens where you can start doing those things happily. So life, instead of being a pursuit of happiness, then becomes an expression of happiness. And this is something that I wish everybody can experience. And it may be the same life, the same neighbor, the same job, but it's a drastic change in the quality of your life, because you're not doing everything hoping to be happy one day. You are doing all those things being happy. And that is worth it.
That is so beautiful. The expression of life, of happiness, and going through it, enjoying every moment of life, being peaceful, being centered. It has been such an amazing 45 minutes speaking to you, Swamiji. We don't want to end the session, but we all have to move on, because every good thing finally comes to an end. Your book, recently we were having a chat with our editor for our book, conversations around communication. And the editor told us, you guys need to pick up a book and you need to tell us that which is the book that you have really enjoyed and reading, and which you found was, very easy for audience to go through. And the first book that came to mind was Looking Inward, because here not only is everything explained so easily, there are also practical, tools and tips given to the reader, which they can imbibe into their life. They can, add it into their lives, and they can lead a much richer life. So thank you so much, Swamiji, for coming here, and for everybody who's watching us today. Swamiji is there in his simplicity sitting in front of us. But guys, he's not just somebody who closes his eyes and meditates. Let me assure you, from what I know about his background, he has also worked in turbulent northeastern regions also. And from even while working there, he has always remained calm and self-centered, centered within himself, not self-centered, but centered within himself. And this is what really we need to learn, and this is what we need to imbibe in our lives. It helps to be calm and peaceful because it increases your focus and clarity. It increases, your everything that you do, your creativity in life. So guys, that's what we really need to look at. Take this back home and probably see this live again later, or go through it again, and take these valuable golden nuggets of wisdom, practical wisdom that were dropped today. So thank you so much, Swamiji, for coming on to our show, and we're very, very grateful. And
my pleasure.
And before we go, since you are a Vedic scholar also, if it is not out of place, may I ask you to bless all the audience and all the coaches and all the people who are helping profession with a few lines of few chants, 1 or 2 lines of your chants, Swamiji, if I may please, humbly.
Okay, one small mantra or verse. Okay, I know something nice. It's from the Rig Veda, and it basically it's a prayer that may all our efforts be aligned for the greater good, and may we be able to appreciate knowledge coming from all directions and move ahead with that, common mutual understanding, respect, and coming to a common ground for the benefit of all. So I will end with that. Om Sam Samityuvase Vrashannakne Vishwan Yarya Ilaspade Samityase Sano Vasunyabhara Sangachatvam Samvadatvam Samvomanansi Janatam Deva Bhaganyatha Purve Sanjanana Upasate Samano Mantras Samitis Samani Samanam Manasaha Chittame Esham Samanam Mantram Abhimantrayeva Samanena Vohavisha Ajuhomi Samaniva Akutis Samana Hridayani Vaha Samanamastu vo mano yatha avasu sahasati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you once again for being here, and thank you for blessing everybody. We're so grateful.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.